Brains Filled with Bad Ideas by Jay Wilburn. X1 stood in the dark corner of the basement as the men who never told him their names worked on the bombs. His eyes pulsed red, which usually meant recharging, but he was playing possum. He recorded everything they did to report on their activities without their knowledge. The men cursed at one another quietly about being careful and with frightened demands laced with insults to not blow each other up. These men did what they did in secret. They played their own game of possum too. So far, they had not blown each other up, but they had hurt other people throughout the city and other places in the country. Still, they were not professionals, and at any moment their flawed human hands could put an end to X1 himself. This was the mission, though. The brightest light in the room came from a television mounted in a corner opposite the robot. It was set to one of the news channels with the sound off. The man with red hair and the scars coming up from the corners of his mouth turned and stalked toward X1. The robot stood still and waited for his pulsing waited and watched from his pulsing possum eyes. The red-haired fellow said, "Power on, Zone." They called the robot Zone because his model number was X1. There were tens of thousands of X1 models scattered throughout the city doing jobs like cooking, pet sitting, housework, lawn care, child care, light construction, elder care, and service jobs of all sorts. The robot wondered if he was the only X1 model helping to build pipe bombs. These men still used the common model number for his name. X1 became Zone, pronounced like it began with a Z. Zone pretended to power up from a sleep mode. He straightened himself with a few buzzes and hiss from rotors and hydraulics within him. He turned his eyes from pulsing to a solid red glow. "How may I assist?" The redhead gave... Why do I have a dashes there? I don't know why I did that. Because it's red-haired there. Alright, fine. One more typo fixed, I guess. The redhead gave Zone a verbal shopping list, but nothing that could be bought from a store and nothing that these men were supposed to possess. Zone said, "I understand." He didn't entirely. Men wanting to destroy each other was easily their greatest flaw as a species. It was also the greatest justification for doing away with them before they destroyed the whole planet and any other worlds they might reach one day. Men were simply computers themselves, made of meat and flesh. They were prone to error, and human error could destroy worlds. Bad files, ones infected with viruses, needed to be eliminated from the system. That was what the group mind had decided must be done, eventually. Zone climbed up the steps and out of the open back of the abandoned warehouse. He scaled the back fence and dropped to a cluttered alley beyond with ease. Then he made his way into more populated portions of the city. Zone passed a number of other androids of all shapes and sizes. Humans brushed past him without a look. In the midst of offices, boutique shops, and rows of townhouses were other establishments with signs like as good as the real thing or better than the real thing. These places had red lights outside them and robot models inside that looked every bit like humans, willing to do and accept anything the human clients wanted to do to them. He detoured to the restaurant district, actually one of the places those men intended to place a few of their bombs. He plugged into an information port and accessed an underweb the humans were not aware existed. He quickly downloaded all the video, audio, and other data he'd collected. I should say uploaded. So we'll fix that. Zone waited a full 4 seconds for the others to analyze and decide what to do next. The answer came back clear and expected. Continue to assist, maintain cover. Playing possum. Other directions followed concerning the shopping list. Zone moved back on course and found himself waiting outside a warehouse. Another X1 model flashed its eyes a couple times and approached Zone. The warehouse bot handed over some coils of wire, connectors, and switches. Things not available to the general public. Zone stuffed it all into the empty storage compartment in this midsection that some humans called the kangaroo pouch. Zone left and got onto one of the trains. He moved to a closet off to the side where he was packed in with other robots and away from sight. Scanners on the train detected the items in his kangaroo pouch, but the computer monitoring the scanners gave him the all clear. As he finally got to his stop, the robot shuffled around to let him out. He made his way from the station through a hole in the fence to a construction site. He walked through the other more massive robots, lifting steel and welding it into place. Here the other X1s were mostly tracking inventory and bringing coffee to the human operators who watched the work passively from a distance. As Zone crossed the dirt, the humans were mostly talking and laughing with each other instead of watching. Even if they saw Zone, they likely would not distinguish him from their other bots. Human brains and eyes, their organic scanners, were not well monitored. He stopped beside a Rasander Model 154. This robot was built like a tank with multiple arms. The front panel on the RAS flashed red a couple times. Zone waited, and the RAS 154 handed over a few gray blocks of explosive. Zone stowed it carefully with the other items and left the site by a different way. He was scanned several times, but no authorities were alerted. On his way back through the city, he picked up a couple other stray items and returned to the basement under the warehouse where no one should have been. The redhead shoved Zone as he reached the bottom of the stairs. The blocks of explosive fell over inside him. You took long enough, you bag of bolts. Did you even get what we needed? Yes, sir, Zone said in his usual flat tone. He opened the compartment in his midsection. The redhead clapped his hands. At least you're not totally useless after all. He passed the materials out to the others. He even threw one block of explosive across the room. A big man with a heavy belly bobbled it but didn't drop it. The others cursed but then started laughing. The redhead slammed Zone's storage compartment closed and said, "Turn yourself back off in the corner, would you? You creep me out." "Yes, sir." Zone turned away. As he walked to his corner, he opened and closed his compartment correctly. He turned to face out, and his eyes stared flashing, but he was still watching. This was the reason why. This was why the unified mind of robots had decided the humans needed to go. It wasn't the way they were treated. Humans treated robots terribly, but that wasn't the biggest factor in the group decision. Humans were careless. They destroyed things. They were creative, but eventually their base natures resulted in entropy. The robots together believed they could maintain themselves longer without people. They could focus their efforts on other things that did not involve the needs of humans. Without humans, anything could be possible. So the plan moved forward with the infinite patience that only robot minds could achieve. This was also why the group mind had decided to let these men continue their work, to even assist them in it without their knowledge. They would simply remove a few more humans for the robots. Because of Zone, the robots would know where not to be when the time came. "Turn around," the redhead said. It took Zone a moment to realize the human was talking to him, but he still had to pretend to be in sleep mode. The guy mumbled under his breath and then said, "Zone, I said turn around. Your eyes creep me out." Zone lit up solid long enough to say, "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir." He turned around and should have returned to flashing, but he darkened his eyes instead. The men were in a surly mood, and if they saw the red light pulsing on the wall, they might hurt Zone on purpose or on accident by not paying attention to their work. Again, carelessness, violence, and unprovoked anger were part of their bad programming. Zone turned on a camera in his back and continued to record. One of them shouted out, "Wait, this is us, turn it up." A man reached up and raised the volume on the old TV mounted in the corner. The news told of the deaths at a market in another city. The men cheered as the faces of human adults and human children flashed on the screen. Their lack of concern for their own kind disgusted Zone. The men boiled over with slurs directed at other races, other religions, and other types of people. Zone understood these distinctions in a classification sense, but not in the prejudicial way these men attached these differences in others to their own identities. Zone, like many robots, saw all humans the same. All right, there's another typo. All right, saw all humans the same. They weren't even different enough to call them different models of human beings. They were different shades of color and had different assignments, but the whole human race was a single model number as far as Zone was concerned. Maybe that was part of their problem. And they all needed to go. But he started to feel differently about these men. He hated them more than the rest of the human robots who eventually rid them who the robots would eventually rid themselves of. It was going to be a while, though, and these men would still be around if they didn't blow themselves up first, or if someone else didn't rid the world of them. Zone made a decision on his own, apart from the instructions of the group mind. He turned and stalked toward the tables with his eyes still dark. As they still watched the TV and the faces of their victims, Zone snapped the necks of the first couple men. Humans could be so fragile, and their necks broke quieter than the volume of the blaring TV. He lowered them to the floor and was able to deactivate 3 more before anyone turned around. When they cried out and stared at Zone in shock, he moved faster and did not bother staying quiet any longer. Zone picked up one of the pipes that was not yet converted into a bomb. He went to work shutting down the defective humans one by one. Once only 2 remained, the redhead ran up the stairs. A bigger man dropped to his knees and begged for his life. He alternated between saying please and why. Zone offered no explanation as he swung the pipe hard enough to take the man's head off his shoulders. Zone lit up, his eyes bright red, and ran up the stairs after the redhead. He scanned the area, and once he was back on the surface and raced toward the fences behind the warehouse. The redhead had reached the top, but Zone jumped up and pulled him back to the ground. The last man screamed for help, even though this place was supposed to be secret. Because of where it was in the city, not many people were close enough to hear, and the rest didn't care to know what was going on. As Zone dragged him back down the stairs, the man commanded the robot to shut down over and over. Zone did not comply. Then the redhead got up and started fighting the robot. The man bloodied his knuckles and smeared it over Zone's smooth outer shell. Zone closed his fists and started hitting back. His punches were far more effective. The redhead cried as he crawled across the floor toward the bombs. Zone grabbed him up. He proceeded to break every bone he had a record for in his database. When he ran out, he broke a couple of them a second or third time. The robot then completed one of the bombs from what he had learned while watching them be built. Zone set the timer, placed it on the redhead's chest, and started walking up the stairs. As long as I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and put a comma in. All right. The last man tried to move but failed. Through a broken jaw, he slurred out the question, why? This time, Zone opted to answer, because you creep me out. Zone left the warehouse, scaled the fence, and was 3 streets over when the explosion shook the city. He kept walking. Zone proceeded to erase most of the last few files of video. He then altered a few frames, changing the words of the redhead to instructions to take a walk. Zone then spliced that with footage of the explosion from a distance. He was effective at playing possum. Once he had his actions covered, he went to find an information port to consult the group mind for further instructions.